All right. We are live. I'm going to give people a minute to gather up. Going to try to keep the stream to about 45 minutes to an hour. We may end up having to go the full hour because there's some pretty interesting stuff to talk about, but I'm going to try to keep it reasonably short tonight. I forgot to plug in my microphone. Hold on one second, guys. Okay, I don't know what microphone the stream is using right now. I just unplugged. I just plugged in my good one, but I don't know if it's using my good one, and I don't know if I can change that at this point. Let me look around here real quick. No. Okay, let me do some testing. There's going to be an echo in 1 second. Excuse me. Okay, test. Okay, I think that's my bad microphone, but whatever. I forgot to plug it in time. Okay, so welcome everybody. We got some news this morning. The Seattle Seahawks chose to release a stud player to save anywhere from $12 to $14 million against the salary cap in 2021. And as of right now, that player who we released is still a free agent. The team hopes to bring him back, but for the moment, he is not on this team anymore. So we're going to want to spend a few minutes talking about that, and we're going to want to spend some time talking about what we might do to replace him if we end up having to. So first of all, let me just break some stuff down, because some of the comments I got in the video I posted earlier today kind of indicated that maybe some people don't totally understand everything that is behind something like this. So basically, contracts in the NFL are pretty much always backloaded. So when we cut Dunlap and he was due to make, like, what was it, 14 million against the cap this year, and you bring him back, you might bring him back on a deal that pays him like 10 million bucks a year for the next 3 years. But there's a good chance that most of that money will be in the last year. So you might bring him back for a 3-year, $30 million contract, but his cap hit in 2021 would only be like maybe 5 or 6 million. So some people were saying, oh, we don't really save that much money if we cut him and bring him back, but you really can. You really can save quite a bit of money by doing this. So you cut Dunlap, who was due to make, I think, 14 million this year, count 14 million against the cap, and then you bring him back on a contract that pays him or counts him against the cap only 5 million in 2021. Those savings are big enough for you to go get Corey Linsley and Gerald Everett, honestly, because those contracts that you give those guys are going to be backloaded the same as well. So this is definitely a big deal, and letting Dunlap go, even if you get him to bring him back, is a good thing. So I think that's really important to keep in mind. I think there is a very good chance that we will bring back Dunlap. Some people have pointed out that pass rushers are very valuable in the NFL, so he's probably going to get a lot of money, and that's true. But we know a couple things. One, he cannot play in a 3-4 defense. We know that. He was in a 3-4 defense in Cincinnati and basically threw a fit. He doesn't want to be in a 3-4, so no team that runs a 3-4 can sign Dunlap. And we also know that he's older and not as good as many of the other players who are available in free agency this offseason, such as Yannick Ngakoue, the guy that I put in the thumbnail for this video, Trey Hendrickson, Carl Lawson. They're all clearly better than Dunlap. So don't be surprised if Dunlap ends up getting in on the second wave, because the guys better than him will go in the first wave. All right. So I anticipate bringing back Dunlap for the moment, but there's a very good possibility we don't. It can go either way at this point, and we should discuss the possibility of us not bringing him back. So, all right, we got about 20 people in here now. That's pretty cool. How's my audio sound, everybody? I think my stream is using my bad mic, which is unfortunate, but I don't think I can fix it right now. So hopefully you guys can at least understand me. Future stream, like this won't be an issue once I get my main computer working, which should be pretty soon. It's coming together in there, by the way. Maybe I'll show it later. I don't know. So, okay. Audio sounds good. Okay. I'll make it work. Sorry about that. Usually, if I had plugged in my microphone before I started the stream, it would have picked it up, but I don't think you can pick it up in the middle. Okay, so first, let's start with in-house. As of right now, the Seahawks defensive ends are starting LJ Collier and Rasheem Green, I think. That'll probably be how it goes. LJ Collier and Rasheem Green. Behind them as backups, we have Alton Robinson and Darrell Taylor. And that's basically it. Mask, I mean, I think I have my OBS set up pretty well on my old computer, so I think I just have to do the same thing, but okay. So yeah, behind them you have Alton Robinson and Darrell Taylor. And there's really nobody else on the payroll in 2021 right now. We could bring back Shaquem Griffin. We could bring back Bruce Irvin. We could bring back Benson Mayowa. We could bring back a few other players. As of right now, it's just those four guys. So my first question for the chat, and anybody can answer this, if we go into 2021 with that top four rotation at defensive end, do you think that can be good enough? Yes or no? Once again, Collier, Green, Taylor, Alton Robinson. Is anybody in chat willing to stand pat with that top four? Okay, a lot of people in chat saying no, which I'm inclined to agree with. I am inclined to agree with the sense that it's not going to be good enough. It's going to be a lot like what it was last year before we traded for Dunlap, really. So if you take a look at those four guys, you have, let's start with Collier. I feel like Collier has a low ceiling. I don't think he's a bad player. I think he has a place in the league. Excuse me, guys. I just finished eating dinner. I actually had to run down here to start on time, but I feel like LJ Collier has a pretty low ceiling. I think that in year 3 he could make a jump up to somebody who can get like 20 to 25 pressures and 5 to 6 sacks, but I don't think he's ever going to be a double-digit sack guy. I don't think he's ever going to be a premier rusher. I think he's just, a decent guy to have around, and that's about it. I don't think he's bad. I just don't think he's ever going to be that stud. And right now, the real question is, can we wrangle up a stud? Okay, so the next guy after that would be Rasheem Green. I like Rasheem Green a lot, but I liked him a lot more going into 2020 than I did going into 2021. I thought Rasheem Green was going to break out in 2020. He did not, mostly because he got hurt, but it's still another year, and we still haven't seen big stuff from him. So Rasheem Green, I like him. I'm willing to give him a little bit of the benefit of the doubt because he got hurt last year, and that's not really his fault, but I just don't think that we can count on him ever developing into a stud at this point. This year is probably his last chance to do so. If he wants to prove that he can be a stud, this is the year. And then you have the two backups. Darrell Taylor, I feel like expecting anything more out of Darrell Taylor than what Collier did this year would be foolish. I think Darrell Taylor if we can get like 15 to 20 pressures and 3 to 4 sacks from him in 2021, I'd be pretty okay with that. This is a guy who did not play at all as a rookie. He's might not get a really good offseason. And yeah, I just don't think it's reasonable to expect him to go from 0 to 100 in one offseason, especially when the offseason he gets might not even be a full offseason. Last guy there would be Alton Robinson, who had a very nice rookie season. He did a lot of good stuff. I think he had 4 sacks in limited snaps. He made plays against the run too. I think he was actually really good against jet sweeps. But Alton Robinson, I think it's a little ambitious to say he's going to go from solid rookie to a super stud in one off season. Okay, money's huddle. That's cool. But yeah, Alton Robinson is good. But I'm not seeing a stud anywhere in there in 2021. Alton Robinson could be a stud. Darrell Taylor could be a stud. But I don't think either of those two guys are going to be studs in 2021. And that's what we need to worry ourselves with right now. So if we decide to not just stand pat, there are a couple guys we can bring back. Bruce Irvin, DeMontre Moore, and Shaquem Griffin and Brandon Jackson would basically be my guys. I don't think anybody in here is going to be super optimistic about any of those guys. I think that DeMontre Moore is a good third string end. He could be like the 5th defensive end behind Alton Robinson and Darrell Taylor. I think that Bruce Irvin is a reasonable choice to bring back just because he can also play linebacker. But again, he's a guy that I want to be like, the third string defensive end. So if anybody in chat really likes one of those 4 guys I just mentioned, go ahead and say so now, but I doubt we'll get any love for those guys. I would like to see Brandon Jackson and Bruce Irvin as the third stringers, but that's really about it. Kyle, probably like $6 million or something, 1 year, $6 million. He didn't do anything to earn any money last year. Yeah, Jonathan Bullard's another one chaotic, actually. We can spend a minute about Bullard, but he only really did anything in 1 game last year. So if you get him, you're probably only getting him as a third stringer, which is valuable. You need third stringers, you need special teamers, but that's not really what we're trying to find here. All right, so that basically wraps it up in terms of in-house options for this team. That basically wraps it up in terms of guys that we could just promote from within or re-sign for cheap. And I think it's a little lacking right now. If we do not bring back Dunlap, it's not very good. Yeah, Kyle, I think that's a very viable option. But if we cannot keep Dunlap for one reason or another, I think we need to discuss the possibility of doing something else. So with that in mind, let's consider the players that we can get in free agency. And one thing I want to stress. Yeah, Michael, that's exactly what I was thinking too, actually. Dunlap, 3 years, 30 million, backload the crap out of it and, figure it out later. Like, Dunlap's old. Okay, so anyway, let's spend a little bit of time talking about the potential free agents we could sign. There are some big names here. There are some guys that are going to be very expensive, but we'll spend some time on them because clearly we have a need. And one thing I really want to stress, we don't need another defensive end who is just okay. We don't. We have enough defensive ends who are just okay. LJ Collier is okay. Rasheem Green is okay. Alton Robinson is at least okay. Hopefully Darrell Taylor will be okay. If you want okay, you can bring back Bruce Irvin. You can bring back DeMontre Moore. Those guys are okay. We're looking for somebody who can be the lead pass rusher. So the first name would be Leonard Williams, a free agent from the Giants. He is in line for a monster contract. I would expect him to get at least $10 million a year over 4 or 5 years. So if you get Leonard Williams as your defensive end, that's a lot of money that you may have been planning to spend somewhere else. He's a defensive tackle. Okay, he's more of a 3-4 end, but that doesn't mean he can't play 4-3. Some of those guys can do that. I'm going to go ahead and say this, though. The fact that he's only really had one good year and it was his contract year kind of puts me off of this anyway. So we probably can't really look at this one that much. So Leonard Williams is one of the big catches this offseason, but okay, so the next guy, I'm just going to like read these names out at random and we'll spend a minute talking about them. The next guy, we've already discussed him a little bit here, but Jadeveon Clowney, because of his circumstance, he would probably have to take like a 1 year, $5 million, 1 year, $6 million deal. He would be very cheap. There would be very little risk. It would just be like, okay, bring him in and it's going to be cheap. And if he gets hurt, so what? The only issue would be if you're going to put your eggs in his basket and he doesn't pan out, which he very likely won't, that leaves you in a very bad situation. Yes, Michael, we cut Dunlap. Okay, so there's a mix of stances on Clowney. I will grant you this. If we bring him in, it would not be good for us to depend on him for anything. We should give him like $5 million and say, figure it out. Do something for us or don't. Give us something, but if you don't, we're going to have other plans. Yeah, Benson Mayo is another one, Michael, actually. Yeah, you can bring back Mayoa. All right, so the next name that I see is Yannick Ngakoue, and this is a guy who's going to get money. He's going to get probably at least 50 million, maybe 60. I would say somewhere between 50 and 60 million, and probably 13 to 15 million per year. This is the big time home run swing. If you want to really break the bank and just possibly screw up the rest of your offense, if plans this offseason, this is the guy. Now, he is a stud. He is a very good player. But I want to reiterate, if you sign him, you better kiss your plans of bringing in a lot of other players goodbye. Yes, Kyle, that is true, I think. He fits better in the 3-4 scheme. Probably. Fair enough. All right, so, okay. The next name, and again, I want to stress, we are looking for players who are going to be really good. We're not looking for players who are just going to be guys. So this guy's kind of on the line of Ryan Kerrigan of the Washington football team. Long storied career, but he's going to be 33 next year. If you think he has one more decent year left in him and he can play defensive end for you for one season, you could probably bring him in pretty cheap, because obviously Washington's not going to keep him because they have so many other defensive ends. Pretty cheap. Yeah, he can be a backup. Yeah, I mean, that's kind of the issue, though. We have enough guys who are good enough to be backups. The question is Ryan Kerrigan capable of being a starter with good depth behind him? Like, he doesn't have to play every snap. He would play, 60% of the snaps. Okay, so yeah, that's kind of true, Green Earth, but the thing is we don't want to have to constantly blitz in order to maintain defensive pass rush. We want to be able to get pass rush without blitzing all the time. Okay, so going down the list, trying to find the next name that's interesting. Somebody in chat was saying Solomon Thomas, but Solomon Thomas has been a big fat bust his whole career. So I'm not really enthusiastic on that. Henry Anderson from the Jets is more of a 3-4 end, I think. Everson Griffin, if you're willing to gamble a bit on a guy who's old, is intriguing. Everson Griffin is going to turn 33 this year. He's going to turn 34 next offseason. And he probably wouldn't cost a lot of money because he is pretty old and he didn't have an amazing season in 2020, but he did have 6 sacks. He's been a great player throughout a lot of his career. If you want to bring him in to be a starter, that's not the worst idea I've ever heard. Let's see here. Romeo Okwara is an interesting one. He's somebody in chat was saying that we should give Dunlap 3 years, 30 million. Romeo Okwara would probably get that too, about more or less. 3 years, 30 million. He's 25 years old, about to be 26. Last year he was on the Lions. He had 10 sacks. He had 7.5 sacks in 2018. So Romeo Okwara might be somebody who sneaks in as a nice little replacement for Dunlap. Geno Atkins is a defensive tackle. Matthias, baseball boy. We're not really talking about that in this stream. Could be Michael. That's actually not a bad comparison. Let's see here. Who else? Takarist McKinley is interesting. He's probably going to get a little bit of money this offseason. Spotrac says he's going to get like $8 million a year for 3 years. I think it could be something like that. It might be a little less because the market is going to be a little oversaturated. It might be like 3 years, 20 million. But he's certainly not. He would probably be the best pass rusher on this team if he can get back to 2018 form. He would not be elite. I don't know if Bud Dupree is. I don't know if Bud Dupree is going to fit in our defense. He's a outside linebacker in a 3-4. We want to be a little careful about that. Yeah, that's a good point. Week 2K makes a good point. There are going to be more players that shake free, definitely. And one reason why we might be able to sign Dunlap a little easier than people are thinking is because teams are not going to have a lot of money. Okay, so I think we've gone over every name that is really appealing to me in terms of guys we could bring in. Let me go through here. There's Vic Beasley, but I don't think he's very good. So I don't think you can bring him in and have the expectation that he's going to be a stud. So I'm not really high on Vic Beasley. There's Trey Hendrickson, who I actually put in the thumbnail, but he's going to probably be a $60 million man. So, or well, maybe not in this market, but I actually kind of like Trey Hendrickson if he doesn't become super expensive. He was very good last year. I think he would fit in pretty well on this defense. And if you could get him for something like 3 years, 30 million, like I was talking about with Dunlap, I think that's a great option. Carl Lawson is very appealing to me as well. He might be a little bit cheaper. He might be closer to like 8 million a year. And the problem with him is his only great season as a pass rusher was 2017 when he was a rookie. He has not been quite the same player since then. I don't think Robert Quinn is a free agent. Let's see here. Okay. So let's take a look at some of the outside linebackers who could maybe play defensive end in our defense. The big one, yeah, week 2K. I definitely want to do that too. Don't get me wrong. I want to play the guys we drafted and find out if they're any good, but I don't think any of those guys, even in a good scenario, are studs. I don't think LJ Collier is ever going to be a stud pass rusher. I don't think Darrell Taylor will be a stud pass rusher this season. I don't think that Alton Robinson is going to be a stud pass rusher this season. And maybe Rasheem Green, but it's really kind of like throwing the dice on that one. I'm not crazy about it. So anyway, if you want to go get a 3-4 edge rusher and try to convert them to your defensive end, you can do Von Miller. I have no idea what Von Miller is going to cost on the open market. Spotrac thinks he's going to get about 3 years, 30 million. So basically the Dunlap deal. So if you want to get rid of Dunlap and bring in Von Miller instead, that's probably pretty equivalent. Woo, excuse me. So, would you guys be willing to take a chance on Von Miller being able to play 4-3 end? And instead of bringing back Dunlap, you bring in him? I'm not. No, Green Earth. I think LJ Collier is going to be a decent player. I think that in 2021, if he stays healthy, he should be able to do something like 25 pressures and 6 sacks. But I think that's kind of his ceiling. I don't think he can get much better than that. Chaotic. They're still deciding. I think it's possible. Miller is 1 year younger than Dunlap, I think. They might be the same age. The problem is Miller just tore his ACL, which is a problem. But okay, so there are a couple other guys like Matthew Judon, but I feel like he's not as good as his numbers say. Melvin Ingram, but he's getting older. Bud Dupree just tore his ACL. Shaquille Barrett, I don't know if he can make the transition. Leonard Floyd is kind of interesting. Somebody in chat was talking about Leonard Floyd earlier. I don't know about that, Greeners. This is not a good market for a player like him who just tore his ACL. Von Miller just had a devastating injury. He's not going to get the massive deals. Leonard Floyd is probably going to be a little more expensive than Dunlap, but it's an interesting option. And at that point, we're down to players like Marcus Golden. And to me, if we're going to give Marcus Golden, what's the difference between Marcus Golden and Benson Mayowa? Is Marcus Golden really that much better than a guy like Collier or Green or even maybe Taylor? So Hassan Reddick, I guess, if he can transition to an end. He had a very good year last year. Maybe too good for our price range, but it's an interesting thought. That's really about it. That's about all I can say. Yeah, I mean, you eat 2K. If you want to do that, you could just bring back Bruce Irvin. Bruce Irvin probably would be capable of doing what Kerrigan is doing at this point. And I don't think Bruce Irvin's going to cost more than $1.5 million. So, yeah, the issue that we're talking about here is we don't have a stud. We have guys who are pretty good. Like I said, Collier's pretty good. Rasheem Green's pretty good. Alton Robinson is pretty good. Darrell Taylor will probably be pretty good. We have an overload of players that are pretty good. We need the stud. So a lot of people were talking about Aldon Smith. That might be a guy you can get if, is somebody who has a lot of upside, but is also going to be reasonably priced. So that's interesting. That is interesting. All right. So with that being said, I think that'll do it for free agency. Those are the options. There are a lot of them, and we should think about them. Everybody's going to have different takes on what we should do. The last option would be to draft a Dunlap replacement. And the thing is, if we draft a replacement for Dunlap, you probably have to use your second round pick. Because I don't think it's realistic to draft somebody in the 4th round or 5th round and expect him to be a year one stud. It doesn't happen very often. I actually think in general, it's pretty rare for a rookie to have double-digit sacks. Well, you week 2K, you can be creative with the contract. Like look at JJ Watt's contract. It's $34 million, but he only counts $6 million against the cap in 2021. You can do stuff like that. All right. So anyway, if we use our second round pick on a defensive end, I don't know how I would feel about that, but if we do, the only 2 guys that stand out to me as reasonable options would be Joe Tryon of Washington We would need him to gain a little bit of weight to play 4-3 end. And the other guy would be Patrick Jones II out of Pittsburgh. Those are the two guys that stood out to me as 4-3 defensive ends who could maybe make a big impact in 2021. Now, I don't really want to use our second round pick on a defensive end. I feel like we've done that enough lately. You already drafted Rasheem Green. You already drafted LJ Collier. You already drafted Darrell Taylor, Alton Robinson. Patrick Jones had a bad senior bowl. That's okay. That's interesting. Ronnie Perkins out of Oklahoma. Wait, who traded for Isaiah Wilson? Well, according to the Draft Network, Ronnie Perkins is a late third round pick. That's not bad, I guess. I wouldn't be super optimistic about him stopping fools in 2021. Okay, the Dolphin. Okay, I missed that somehow. Okay. All right. So it seems like people are a little down on Patrick Jones. If we draft Joe Tryon, he's going to have to fall pretty far because Joe Tryon projects to be a top second round pick. So we are going to need him to fall a little bit, but I think he can play 4-3 end. There was Joseph Osai of Texas, but he seems to be slightly better as a fit as a outside linebacker in a 3-4. Wow. Isaiah Wilson has talent. I know he's clearly a moron, but they literally gave him away. Wow. I did not know that. I this is what happens when you delete Twitter, guys. You miss out on shit. Rashad Weaver out of Pittsburgh. Oh, another Pittsburgh edge player. Okay. The Draft Network has him going in the 7th round. So my question there would be, is he really going to be a year one stud? Yeah, you eat 2K. I tend to agree, but we should at least talk about it. Okay, so that's really all I can say about this situation right now. I hope like I said, Dunlap was going to count, I think, 14 million against the cap in 2021. We can bring him back on a 3-year, $30 million deal, so he only counts like 5 million against the cap in 2021. That is a savings of $9 million. You can use that $9 million to bring in Corey Linsley and Gerald Everett, probably, because their contracts are going to be backloaded too. So this is big. And if we can bring him back on the kind of deal that I'm imagining, I think this was a very productive move for us. If we do not bring him back, there are many options out there that can produce a pretty decent stud. Like I said, Trey Hendrickson, I think, is a decent option. Carl Lawson is an interesting option. There are a lot of guys out there. We discussed a lot of them today. Von Miller. So I'm interested. Obviously, defensive end for the moment has become a need. But I think it's one that should be pretty manageable to fill. All right. So I think I've said everything that I can say about the defensive end situation. We cleared cap, which we needed to do. We are going to use that cap well, I think. And if we bring in even another expensive stud, you got to remember they're going to be on the first year of a contract. Dunlap was on the last year of his contract. There's a big, big difference there. Hey, Soundwinder. Okay, so I'm going to spend 10 minutes here. I'm going to spend nothing on KJ yet, Green Earth. I'm going to spend 10 minutes here talking about a new topic. I don't think this one's that interesting, but I want to at least talk about it. Franchise tags and transition tags must be placed on by tomorrow at 1:00. So the deadline for placing franchise tags is in about 17 hours. So the Seahawks, to my knowledge, have not discussed or had any buzz around them at all of using a franchise tag. And I don't think this team can use a franchise tag because the financial situation kind of requires us to backload any contracts we give. But we should talk about it for a minute. So the only players I could see us franchise tagging would be Chris Carson, Shaq Griffin, KJ Wright. That's it. Poona Ford was interesting, but we can just put a first round tag on him. And it's only going to be $4 million. So we should just do that. We don't need to tag him. So first, let's talk about Carson real quick. The franchise tag for a running back this year is $11 million, and the transition tag is $9 million. Now, I've said many times I don't want to bring back Carson, but some people do. So you can tag him for 11.1 or $9 million. And given the fact that Carson is probably going to be looking for somewhere around 6 to 7 million a year over the course of 4 years, it's not the most unreasonable decision to make. So anybody in chat want to tag Chris Carson? I will say I don't want to bring back Carson under any circumstance, but I know some people do. So I'll give them a chance to voice their support of Chrissy Carson. Tag and trade is interesting, Kyle. We'll talk about that for a second. Okay, seems like nobody's really interested in Carson, which I completely agree with. I do not want to bring back Carson for pretty much any price at this point. Okay, the next tag target of any interest would be KJ Wright. And this one, it would only be if his market is much fatter than I think. But KJ Wright franchise tag would be 15.7 million. Transition tag would be 13.4 million. At that point, I don't know why you wouldn't just give him his 2-year or 3-year extension. It wouldn't be that much more money. But okay. Seems like nobody's down with that, and I agree. The last one, and let's take a minute on this one, because even if you don't want to tag and keep, you can tag and trade, would be Shaq Griffin. Shaq Griffin, you can franchise tag for 15.3 million, or you can transition tag for 13.2 million. And in free agency, I think Shaq is going to get something like 4 years, 40 million. About 4 years, 40. So you're going to give him 10 million a year for a long-term deal, or you can give him 15 for a 1-year deal with no guarantees. So the first question is, does anybody want to bring him back to play him for his 5th season? And I think the answer to that is no. I don't want to do that. The next question would be, can you tag and trade him? That's a little different. I would be interested in tagging and trading Shaq. But hey, Mr. Blonde, I don't know what the league thinks of Shaq. I don't know if they think he's good or not. I really don't know. But corners, I feel like they get overpaid in the NFL. Like, I don't know why Byron Jones deserved that massive deal that he got, but he got it. I'm not 100% sure that Marlon Humphrey deserved the big deal that he got, but he got it. I think Jalen Ramsey probably deserves his deal, but he's different. He's cut a little differently. Yes, Jackson, tagging Shaq would be 15 million, but you can tag him trade him, and then the other team gives him the extension, and you don't have to worry about nothing. Yeah, Jair Alexander's a good one. Okay, so seems like some people are on board with the idea of tagging and trading Shaq. You could maybe get a 3rd or 4th round pick out of it. Yeah, Week 2K is correct too, though. It is risky, and you might be stuck. And you might be stuck with a $15 million cornerback that, I mean, that sucks. Mr. Blonde, there is no universe that where the Houston Texans are dumb enough to give us Deshaun Watson and take Bobby Wagner. Y2K, the tag is fully guaranteed with no guarantees after the year. Kyle, the tag deadline is tomorrow at 1:00. The tag deadline is in about 17 hours. The Texans are dumb. They are not that dumb, I don't think. I don't think anybody's that dumb. Jar Jar Binks is not running the Texans franchise. They have dumb people in charge, but it's not that bad. I don't know if you can tag and trade Carson for anything. Like, he's a running back. Those are dime a dozen. And Carson's good, but he can't stay healthy. He's a power back, meaning he's going to age like milk. I don't see it. I don't know what Leonard Fournette's going to cost, Chrissy. I think Leonard Fournette is trash, personally. I don't think he's any good. I think that he's basically like a slightly better version of Trent Richardson, but I don't know. Thomas, we could, but I don't think this team is going to be willing to do that. Remember, we did not. No one is going to trade you for your overpriced RB. Yeah, exactly. I don't think Carson. I mean, he's just a running back. Well, he's had fumble problems 1 year, Y2K. I don't want to kill the dude for that. I like Carson, but dime a dozen. There are Carsons in every draft. I think that's probably about all we can do in this stream. I wanted to discuss the Dunlap situation, and we did. I wanted to spend a few minutes on the franchise tag stuff, and I think we pretty cleanly dismissed everything that needed to be said about that. We don't want to do it unless we're going to do trading tag, which I don't think is feasible. Maybe for Shaq, but that's a risk. Yeah, I want Jamal Williams, Chrissy. That's one of my guys. Eli Jett, no. I think Penny is a good player, but, well, maybe in this system he can be pretty good. That's kind of what I'm counting on. Mr. Blood, I still need to put the GPU in. I don't have a GPU yet, so I had to pull the one out of my old computer, and I need to put it in the new one. Okay, so that's pretty much going to wrap it up for me. Thank you, everybody, for coming out tonight. Good stream, good discussion. For my part, I really hope we can just bring back Dunlap on a deal that gives him like $5 to $6 million against the cap in 2021. Yeah, exactly, Ethan. I completely agree with what Ethan's saying. So yeah, my hope and what I would do is bring back Dunlap on 3 years, 30 million, backloaded heavily. You're not going to have to give him a ton of guaranteed money because he's good, but he's clearly not as good as Ngakwe or Hendrickson, I don't think, at this point in his career anyway. Carl Lawson is more valuable. Von Miller might be more valuable. There are a lot of guys who have more value than Dunlap. Chaotic, I don't know anymore. It depends on when my room is ready, and it's not ready yet. All right. But yeah, I completely agree, Ethan. If we have a good offensive system and good play calling and good quarterback play, we can make do with a decent to mediocre running back. Yeah, I want to bring in Jamal Williams because Penny's not dependable. Week 2K is absolutely right. I think he can be good, but he's not dependable. I want to bring in Jamal Williams because I don't think he's going to be that expensive. Everyone saw how Dunlap played, so I think the Browns will get him. Well, the Browns have Myles Garrett, and don't they have Olivier Vernon? I don't really like Olivier Vernon personally, but I think the Browns still have him. How much will Jamal Williams get? I estimated like 2 years, $6 million. right. So that's really all I can say about this one. Necessary move today. I know a lot of people were really upset about it, but guys, we have a quarterback right now who's pissed off because he feels like we're not doing enough. And I have my own bone to pick with Wilson right now, but he does have a point. Yes, chaotic, I will. He does have a point. We have neglected the offensive line. So Carroll's going to have to give up some of his toys to yes it is. It's a Secret Labs Omega, Mr. Blonde. But Carroll needs to give up some of his defensive assets so we can have a better offense. And today he did that, and I appreciate that. So we'll see what happens. I think free agency starts in 9 days. I have 9 days to get like Jamal Williams prefer either Trey Sermon or North Carolina running back. I don't know. I think Jamal Williams is much better than mediocre. I really think Jamal Williams is solid. Yeah. Some people don't think like a GM. By the way, I'm not saying that this is a defense of anything, but we did start 5-1 before we traded for Dunlap. So you can win games with no pass rush. Okay, I'm not saying we should go into 2021 planning to have no pass rush. But, think about it like that. We did win a lot of games with no pass rush last year. I think we started 6-1 without Dunlap touching the field, if I'm remembering correctly. So being able to score a lot of points in this NFL does matter. And letting Dunlap go and getting an elite center and a really good tight end in here would probably do a lot of positive things. All right. I'm out of here. Peace out. Go Hawks. There will be a video tomorrow, but it's probably the least interesting video I posted in a while. Probably the least interesting subject to talk about. It's going to be backup safeties. So behind a Jamal and Quandre. And that's not something that a lot of people are going to be interested in. We're still going to do a video about it. We're still going to talk about it. And at that point, it could be a while before you guys see me do a sit-down video again. My room is not ready yet. I don't know when it's going to be ready today yet, but we'll see. All right. Go Hawks. See you guys tomorrow. And appreciate you coming around and having this discussion with me. All right.